A simple joke, "I'd cheat if I know I won't get caught," was all it took. I didn't know my husband was eavesdropping. The night I lost everything started with a whisper that wasn't meant for him to hear. I remember the exact moment, the fear that ran through my body when I turned and saw Mike standing in the doorway, his face frozen in a look I had never seen before. Not anger, not sadness, just emptiness, as if someone had reached in and scooped out all the love he once had for me, leaving nothing but a hollow shell. I knew in that terrible second that my life was about to fall apart, but I had no idea just how far I would fall. And my name is Anna. I'm 32 years old, and this is the story of how I destroyed my own happiness with my own two hands. Mike and I had been married for 7 years when everything crashed down. He wasn't what you'd call my dream man when we first met. No, he wasn't tall and handsome like the men in romance movies. He wasn't rich or famous. He was just Mike. Steady, reliable Mike who fixed air conditioners and heaters for a living. Not exciting, but he always paid his bills on time and never forgot my birthday. Back then, I worked at a doctor's office helping with the paperwork and bills. My job was okay, not amazing, but between my money and Mike's money, we had a nice little house in a good neighborhood. We could invite friends over without feeling embarrassed about where we lived. Things were fine in the beginning. Mike was always doing little things around the house, fixing leaky faucets, painting walls, making sure everything worked right. My sister Jenny would always tell me how lucky I was. "You found a good one, Anna," she would say with a smile. I would nod and smile back, but deep down inside, I always felt like I could have done better, like I had settled too soon. While my college friends were dating doctors and businessmen, I had picked the guy who fixed air conditioners. Everything changed when Mike got promoted to boss at his job last year. Suddenly, he was making a lot more money. That should have been great, right? But with his new job came this new serious attitude about our money that drove me crazy. He started asking about every single thing I bought. He made budgets and talked all the time about saving for our future. "Do you really need another new shirt, Anna?" he would ask when I came home with shopping bags. "We're trying to save for a bigger house, remember?" What Mike didn't understand was that I worked hard for my money too. Yes, he paid for the house and the car and most of the bills, but I paid for the food and my own car insurance. The way I saw it, if I had money left over, that was mine to spend however I wanted. But Mike acted like every dollar should go into our savings account, and I started keeping a secret bank account he didn't know about. I wasn't doing anything bad, just putting a little money from each paycheck in there so I could buy things without Mike giving me a hard time. I told myself he was being controlling, that his bigger paycheck had given him too much power over me. But really, he was just thinking about our future. That's how things were when Olivia started working at my office, and that's when everything really started to fall apart. Olivia was everything I wasn't: recently divorced, carefree, and living what looked like an amazing life on Instagram. Unlike my other friends who always said nice things about Mike, Olivia actually listened when I complained about my marriage. "Men like that are so typical," she said during our first happy hour drink after work. "They get a little power and suddenly think they can control everything." My ex was exactly the same way. Finally, someone who understood. We started eating lunch together every day, and our talks were always about how suffocating my marriage had become. With each conversation, my picture of Mike changed more and more. From the caring, hardworking man he actually was into this controlling monster who made my life miserable. Last night, he asked why there's $200 missing from our account. I told Olivia over margaritas one Friday, like I was some little kid who had to report every penny I spent. What I didn't tell her was that the $200 had gone straight into my secret account, which now had almost $3,000 in it that Mike knew nothing about. That's financial abuse, Olivia declared dramatically, waving her drink. "He's trying to control you through money." I nodded eagerly, loving how she took my side without question. Meanwhile, Mike kept trying to make our marriage work. He'd suggest movie nights or weekend trips, but I'd make up excuses, then complain to Olivia about how boring his ideas were. When he brought up having kids, I shut down completely. "We can't afford kids," I snapped, even though his careful money planning had actually put us in a good position. "We've been saving," he said, looking confused. "That's literally what we've been working toward." "Maybe your finances," I muttered, thinking of my secret account that was meant for a trip to Europe by myself, not for diapers and baby food. Work became my escape. One evening while working late, I found myself alone with Jason from the accounting department, tall, single, with that confident smile that always made me a little nervous in a good way. "Your husband doesn't mind you working so late?" he asked, leaning against my desk. "Mike doesn't control my schedule," I replied sharply, enjoying the way Jason raised his eyebrows, looking impressed. When I got home, Mike had waited up for me. There was a plate of dinner carefully covered in the microwave. Instead of seeing this as sweet, I felt annoyed, like his kindness was somehow a trap, another way to make me feel like I owed him something to be why the time Mike suggested having a backyard cookout for Memorial Day weekend. We were living in completely different worlds. Our marriage wasn't just on different pages. We were reading entirely different books. I spent the whole week before the cookout complaining to Olivia about how Mike was forcing me to host his work friends. The truth was, he'd asked if I was okay with the idea first, and I'd said yes, without really paying attention while scrolling through Instagram. I took Olivia's advice seriously, buying several bottles of expensive wine with our shared credit card. When Mike raised an eyebrow at the receipt, I started crying about how he wanted to have people over, but didn't want to pay for good food and drinks. The party started at 3 o'clock with neighbors and Mike's coworkers coming into our backyard. I put on my fake, perfect wife smile while secretly counting the minutes until everyone would leave. Mike was having a great time, cooking burgers and telling jokes, sometimes looking my way with hope in his eyes, like maybe this party would somehow fix things between us. Olivia arrived late, making a big entrance in a bright dress that made everyone look at her. After 2 glasses of wine, I was feeling more relaxed, though my laughs were a little too loud and my stories a little too wild. As the afternoon went on, Mike came over to our little group. "Hey, I have an early meeting tomorrow, so maybe we should start wrapping up around 8 o'clock, he suggested quietly. "God, we just got started," I replied, loud enough for everyone to hear. Always so controlling. By 7 o'clock, I was on my 4th glass of wine and feeling no pain. Mike had gone into host mode, cleaning up paper plates and making sure everyone had drinks. Olivia and I had moved to the patio furniture with Jason from accounting and his friend Tyler. The conversation had turned to relationships. "My ex never understood personal space," Tyler was saying. "Always had to know where I was, who I was with." "Mike's like that," I chimed in, though it was completely untrue. "So suffocating sometimes." Jason laughed. "You seem like the independent type, who wouldn't put up with that for long." Something about the way he said it made me sit up straighter, toss my hair back. "You have no idea." "So what keeps you around?" he asked, leaning forward slightly. The wine, the attention, the weeks of building this false story about my marriage, it all came to a head in that moment. I didn't know Mike had come out to the patio to collect empty glasses. I didn't know he was standing just behind the sliding door. Honestly, I lowered my voice like I was telling a secret. I'd totally cheat if I knew I'd never get caught. Mike's been so controlling lately, he doesn't even deserve loyalty. Olivia giggled nervously while Jason's eyebrows shot up. Tyler looked away uncomfortably, but I kept going, the words spilling out without filter. He thinks because he pays most of the bills, he gets to control everything. Meanwhile, I'm just biding my time, building my escape fund. I waved my wine glass around. 7 years with Mr. Reliable. I definitely put in my time. That's when I noticed everyone's eyes shifting to something behind me. I turned, expecting to see another neighbor, maybe Lisa, with her judgmental looks. Instead, there was Mike, frozen in the doorway, a stack of paper plates in his hands, and an expression I'd never seen before on his face. Not anger, not even hurt, just clarity. Our eyes met for a brief, terrible moment. Then, without saying a word, he set down the plates, turned around, and walked back into the house that I should have gone after him immediately. I should have explained it was the wine talking, that I didn't mean it. But some stubborn, awful part of me thought he needed to stew in it for a while. Let him see what happens when he tries to end my fun early. By the time I went inside, Mike was nowhere to be found. The kitchen was spotless. He'd cleaned everything already. Our bedroom door was closed. I fell asleep on the couch, still in my clothes, convinced we'd talk it out in the morning. This would just become another story about Mike being too sensitive. I had no idea I had just blown up my entire life with one drunken confession. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache, still wearing yesterday's clothes. The house was strangely quiet. No coffee brewing. No shower running did I check my phone. 10:37 a.m. My guest's car wasn't in the driveway. I tried calling his cell, but it went straight to voicemail to BY evening, with still no word from him. I was swinging between worry and anger. I texted Olivia. Mike disappeared after the party, being dramatic as usual. She sent back a wide-eyed emoji. Maybe he's really upset about what you said. Please, I replied. It's not like I actually cheated. It was just talk. Monday morning, I got ready for work as usual, half expecting to find Mike asleep in the guest room. The house remained empty, BY lunchtime, with still no contact. A tiny seed of real worry had begun to grow. That evening, I came home to find Mike's car in the driveway. Relief washed over me, followed immediately by irritation. I'd spent all day worrying, and he couldn't even send a text. The living room looked different somehow. The large framed photo of us from our honeymoon that had hung over the fireplace was gone, leaving just a nail in the wall. So were the books he usually kept on the coffee table. His laptop wasn't in its usual spot. Mike, I called, dropping my purse on the counter. Where have you been? I was worried. He emerged from the hallway carrying a duffel bag, his face a mask of calm I didn't recognize. No anger, no tears, none of the emotion I'd expected, just nothing. I needed some time to think, he said, his voice steady in a way that sent chills down my spine, and to get some things in order. What things? Why are you packing a bag? Don't you think you're overreacting a little? It was just some stupid drunk talk. He looked at me then, really looked at me, like he was seeing someone he didn't recognize. It wasn't just drunk talk, Anna. It was the truth. Actually, it was confirmation of what I've suspected for a while now. Mike handed me a folder without a word. Inside were divorce papers already filled out. My name, his name, a clinical description of assets to be divided. The room seemed to tilt sideways. This is insane. I managed my voice shrill. You're filing for divorce because of one stupid comment at a party? No, Anna. I'm filing for divorce because you've made it abundantly clear that you don't respect me, don't value our marriage, and are actively planning to cheat if the opportunity presents itself. His voice remained calm, which was somehow more terrifying than if he'd been shouting. You called me controlling. You told our friends you're biding your time and building an escape fund. You said I don't deserve loyalty. I was drunk. I was just showing off for Olivia and that guy from accounting. That's supposed to make it better? He shook his head slightly. Even if you were exaggerating, the underlying feeling is real. That's how you truly see me, as someone you settled for, someone you're trapped with. Where have you been staying? I asked instead, my mind scrambling to process what was happening. With my brother. I've been talking with a lawyer. He picked up his bag again. I've already separated our finances. The joint account has enough to cover the mortgage and utilities for the next 3 months, which should give us time to decide what to do with the house. Separated our finances? You can't just do that. Panic was rising now, sharp and insistent. That's our money. Actually, I can, particularly since I've been documenting your pattern of withdrawals to your secret account for the past 6 months. My blood went cold. What are you talking about? The account at First National. The one you've been transferring money to from our joint account. His eyes were flat, unreadable. Did you really think I would notice? I'm the controlling one who watches our finances, remember? That's my money, I said weakly, from my paycheck. We'll let the court decide that. He moved toward the door. You can't just walk out. I was shouting now, the reality of the situation finally hitting me full force. We need to talk about this. He paused at the door. That's the thing, Anna. We're past talking. You've been saying everything I needed to hear for months now. I just wasn't listening. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut with terrible finality behind him. The next few weeks were a blur of panic, denial, and desperate attempts to regain control. I called Mike constantly at first, leaving voicemails that went from angry to tearful to manipulative. He responded only by text, brief, business-like messages about logistics and finances. Even my sister Jenny, who I'd expected would take my side, seemed distant when I called to tell her about the separation. "What exactly did you say at this party?" she asked carefully. When I repeated it, there was a long silence. "Anna," she finally said, "how would you feel if Mike had said that about you?" "It's different," I insisted. "He's been so controlling lately." "By controlling, do you mean he questions your spending from your joint account? The account you're both supposed to be using to save for your future?" My delusion shattered when I received an email from his lawyer requesting a meeting to discuss dividing our things. It included a detailed list of our finances, including documentation of every withdrawal I'd made to my secret account, with dates, times, and amounts. There were also copies of text messages between me and Olivia, where I'd complained about Mike and called him controlling, boring, and said I'd settled for him. The meeting with the lawyers was excruciating. Mike sat across the table, calm and prepared, while I felt increasingly cornered as his attorney laid out his terms. They weren't even unfair. The house would be sold and money split, retirement accounts divided, personal belongings separated. But what hurt was the cool efficiency with which Mike had approached taking apart our life together. "We request that Ms. Parker provide an accounting of the funds transferred to her private account, as these were drawn from joint assets," his lawyer stated. "That money is from my paychecks," I countered weakly. "Ms. Parker's contributions to joint expenses were minimal," the lawyer continued, sliding over a spreadsheet. "Mr. Wilson covered approximately 78% of household expenses, allowing Ms. Parker to save her personal income while benefiting from his financial support." The numbers were right there in black and white. Mike had been carrying us financially far more than I'd acknowledged, even to myself. While I'd been building my escape fund and complaining about his controlling behavior, he'd been paying most of our bills. The real humiliation began when word spread among our friends. People I'd complained to about Mike's controlling behavior now looked at me with obvious judgment. Even Jason from accounting kept his distance, apparently not interested in the newly available woman he'd flirted with. 1 year later, and here I am, sitting in my tiny one-bedroom apartment, surrounded by past due bills. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago. We sold the house, split the money, and went our separate ways. I thought my half of the house money would last longer, but between first and last month's rent on the apartment, new furniture, and my habit of buying things when I'm sad, it disappeared alarmingly fast. My escape fund that I'd been so proud of, gone within 3 months. Turns out, supporting yourself entirely on a medical billing specialist salary is a lot harder than sharing expenses with an HVAC manager. The final blow came last month when my sister Jenny invited me to a family barbecue. Mike was there with Rebecca, a kindergarten teacher with a warm smile, and an easy way with our nieces and nephews. He looked good, happy, relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in years. Probably because he wasn't walking on eggshells around a wife who constantly criticized him. They bought a house together, Jenny told me later. That fixer-upper on Maple Street. Mike's been renovating it himself, and he got another promotion at work. Later, as I was helping in the kitchen, I overheard my mom and Rebecca talking. "He's so thoughtful," Rebecca was saying. "Last week, I mentioned wanting to try that new Italian place, and he made reservations for my birthday without me even reminding him." "That's Mike," my mom replied warmly. "Always been considerate that way." I slipped away before they could see me, a lump forming in my throat. He had been considerate. He had made mental notes of little things I mentioned wanting or needing, then surprised me with them. He cooked meals, fixed things around the house, supported my career decisions even when they meant less money for our goals. Where had my contempt for all that come from? On the drive home, memories flooded back, not of the controlling monster I'd invented, but of the patient, loving man who'd actually been my husband. The time he stayed up all night with me when I had food poisoning. How he never complained about working overtime, so we could afford the house I wanted. The way he looked at me on our wedding day, like he couldn't believe his luck that in that moment, I finally faced the truth I'd been running from. Mike hadn't been the problem in our marriage. I'd been so caught up in what I thought I deserved, in the life I imagined I should have had, that I completely ignored the wonderful life I actually had. I'd created a made-up story where I was trapped with a controlling man I'd settled for, when the reality was I'd been loved deeply by someone I failed to appreciate. As I pull into the parking lot of my apartment complex, so different from the neat house we lived in, I see a notice taped to my door, probably another late payment reminder. My phone buzzes with a text from the latest guy I've been seeing, canceling our plans again. The worst part isn't the money problems or the loneliness or even watching Mike find happiness with someone else. It's knowing that I did this to myself. I destroyed something precious because I was too self-centered to recognize what I had. If I could go back to that party, take back those careless words, maybe things would be different. But life doesn't work that way. There's no rewind button for the consequences of our actions. No do-over for the people we hurt. All I can do now is face each bill, each empty evening, each reminder of what I lost, and hope that someday I'll learn enough from this mistake to deserve someone half as good as the man I threw away.